Hi, this is my response to the mental health unit that we worked on this week. So, in response to the first question, why is it inappropriate to ask a doctor to write a note about when it is safe for a child to return after a mental health crisis? To start off, if it really is a mental health crisis, it's very hard to determine whether or not that child is quote unquote safe to return to school. There could be several factors that could play into a reoccurrence of that behavior that just weren't in play before. For example, if you have a student that maybe acts out and is threatening students in class and it turns out it's a mental health crisis and they leave for a week for treatment, they get that stamp of safe to return, and then everything's fine. 4 months down the line, same thing occurs. It could just very easily be a different trigger that caused this behavior to reoccur. And it's not something that somebody can necessarily see coming. Instead, what I think we should do is instead of asking for that safe to return, ensure that whenever they feel safe to return to school, that you are willing to provide a safe environment for them to learn in. In response to question 2, how would you deal with Tommy if he came back after hospitalization, and what questions would you have? First of all, I would just want to have a one-on-one conversation with Tommy. Tell him that I am there for him. I am willing to talk to him about whatever problems he is going through and help him in any way that I possibly can. And just that I'm on his side, that there is somebody out there who really does care about him. And again, the questions that I would have, I would first direct with Tommy and ask him, you know, what is it that I can do to help you feel successful in the classroom, and not just in learning, but also in your life in a way that's going to help you to feel welcome and safe at school, and that you have somebody that you can talk to no matter what. I would just ask him what he needs in order to be successful. And then I would also just want to talk with either the principal or if the doctor provides comments or anything about that, just to kind of get a better idea of what might trigger Tommy, what more scientific or diagnostic words would be, or definitions of what Tommy is going through, just so I have a little bit better background to be able to help him in whatever ways he needs. For question 3, I chose to read the anxiety article, and I chose to read that article because I have somebody in my life that is affected by anxiety, and I was just curious to understand how it affects students in their lives too. I A couple connections I made with the article is that it provided very scientific, very descriptive feedback of how anxiety affects a person, things that anxiety could cause. So, for example, the compulsive behaviors or repetition, which is kind of associated with OCD as well, and anything else that just can be occur with anxieties, such as panic attacks or consistent worrying, persistent worrying, and stuff like that. One of the connections that I made was just how students, and this was a connection to real life, not necessarily between the articles and the slides, but just how much pressure is placed on students, and to be able to succeed, to do well, to look good, to have what the next best thing is, everything like that. There's so much new anxiety placed on students that wasn't there even when I was in school. There's media influences, political influences, governmental influences, financial influences, and it's just a lot to place on the shoulders of a kid. We have students that, as third graders, are basically the parent of their household, get up early, they have to deal with the anxiety of my little brother's sick, what do I do, things like that. And so it's really important to just know how anxiety is going to affect our students and how that might look in the classroom. And I think both the article and the slides provide very good information about what that might look like and how to kind of approach it with a student, such as breathing exercises, relaxation steps, just helping them to calm down. And I think most importantly, just getting them to talk about what they need help with, being able to get that relationship and trust built so that way you can help them in whatever ways they need with not just their learning, but with their life as well. For question 4, what information from the slides was pertinent or interesting to you as a teacher, and why? Again, probably the anxiety section as well as the OCD section. I kind of sometimes think of myself as having a little bit of undiagnosed OCD just because of the repetitious things that I have to do in order to be able to successfully get through my day. And I mean, that was just incredibly interesting to me to read up a little bit more on stuff like that and to find out how students are really affected by that. Because I can think, easily students that I could see these symptoms in, and things I never really thought before. I thought, oh, they were upset I didn't call on them for a question, when in fact it was something about like I didn't put the eraser on the correct side of the whiteboard or something like that. And so it was really interesting to kind of understand how those things could affect a student's thinking in the classroom. Um, and then how does this information help help me to understand classroom management? Well, it really just helps me to really know have an idea of what could be going through my students' heads. Like I said, maybe if I set the eraser on the wrong side of the board, or maybe if one thing from my school when I was a student was if the teacher did not erase every single piece of the whiteboard marker off the board, I could not focus for the rest of the class. I'd be looking at that one little dot on the whiteboard that didn't get erased. And so it's not necessarily something bad like the teacher didn't call on me for a question. They said I couldn't go to the bathroom or when I had asked or something like that. It's just things like that that could affect them. And being able to build that relationship with your students so you know exactly what could affect them. It can even go to greater lengths, such as, for example, we had a student need to come and talk about missing a rehearsal. And so we try to build that relationship, tell them that we're there for them. If there's something that they're going through, they are welcome to share it with us, and just really trying to make sure that they understand that we're not upset as well. It's just that we want to set them up for success, and by missing rehearsal, that's really hard to be successful. And so and the student understandably was a little like anxious in this time, and so it just helps us to see that maybe the student isn't ready to share what's going on in their lives, but there's definitely maybe something going on. And knowing that there's that anxiety about not succeeding and stuff like that just helps us to be able to teach them in a way that is going to set them up to be successful, as well as set a path for them that they are going to be held accountable, but feel safe while learning as well.